My brother, Nyankumar, always loved a window seat. I can still see him settling into seat 11B, a wide grin spreading across his face as he looked out at the tarmac of Ahmedabad airport. We were heading home to London. The mood was light, full of the easy comfort that comes from a trip well spent with family. We joked about the food we would miss and the work waiting for us back in the UK. The cabin buzzed with the familiar sounds of travel, the click of overhead bins shutting, the murmur of conversations in a dozen languages, the gentle chime of the cabin crew's announcements. It was all so normal, so routine. You never think a normal day will be your last. We had spent the last few weeks in India visiting relatives, a trip we had postponed twice. Looking back, every moment feels precious, tinged with a tragic glow I couldn't see then. Nyankumar was excited. He was talking about plans for the summer, about a garden project he wanted to start. I remember nodding along, my mind already drifting to the long flight ahead. The safety demonstration began, and like most frequent flyers, we paid it little attention. We were seasoned travelers, we knew the drills, we felt safe, cocooned in the modern marvel of a Boeing 787 Dreamliner. The final cabin checks were completed and the doors were sealed. The engines began to spool up with a low, powerful hum that vibrated through the floor. It's a sound I used to love, the sound of adventure beginning. Nyankumar gave me a thumbs up as we started our taxi to the runway. He pointed out different planes, his inner child fascinated by the machinery of flight. The captain's voice came over the intercom, smooth and reassuring, announcing a clear sky for our journey to London. We were cleared for takeoff. The plane accelerated down the runway, a surge of immense power pinning us to our seats. It was a perfect takeoff. For a few seconds, everything was exactly as it should be. Then the moment we lifted off the ground, the feeling changed. The powerful ascent I was expecting never came. Instead, the plane felt heavy, sluggish. I glanced at my brother, a flicker of confusion in my eyes, but he was still looking out the window, mesmerized by the shrinking world below. The initial climb felt weak, strained. I tried to dismiss the feeling as my own tiredness, a trick of the mind after a long holiday. The seatbelt sign was on and the cabin was quiet, save for the hum of the engines. We were in the air, we were on our way, or so I thought. It happened less than a minute after our wheels left the ground. The feeling of being sluggish turned into a terrifying sensation of being stuck. It was as if the sky had turned to thick mud and our plane was trapped within it. We weren't climbing anymore. We were just hanging there, suspended in the air, defying gravity in the worst possible way. A strange silence fell, a deep, unnatural quiet where the roar of the engines should have been. It felt like the world was holding its breath. For about 5, maybe 10 seconds, we just floated. It was the most frightening silence I've ever experienced in my life. Then the lights began to flicker. Green, then white, then off. The cabin was plunged into a disorienting, intermittent darkness. A few nervous gasps rippled through the passengers. I gripped my armrest, my knuckles turning white. I looked at Nyankumar. The smile was gone from his face, replaced with a look of pure, dawning terror. He looked at me, his eyes wide with a question I couldn't answer. What was happening? The gentle hum of the aircraft was gone, replaced by a chilling quiet and the creaks of the plane's frame. We were no longer flying, we were falling. A sudden violent noise erupted from the side of the plane. A deafening bang like a bomb had gone off right next to us. It wasn't an explosion from inside, but something hitting us from the outside. The aircraft lurched violently to one side, throwing people against their seats. The flickering lights gave way to complete darkness and the cabin filled with screams. The feeling of being stuck was replaced by a gut-wrenching plunge. We were going down, and we were going down fast. There was no time to think, no time to pray, only time for raw, animal fear. In those final seconds, I saw the faces of the people around me, illuminated in brief, terrifying flashes as sparks flew somewhere outside my window. I saw the air hostess strapped into her jump seat, her face a mask of professional calm cracking into fear. I saw the family across the aisle holding each other tight. I remember thinking, this is it. This is how I die. I reached for my brother's hand, but I couldn't find it in the chaos. Then came the impact, a horrific, world-shattering sound of tearing metal and splintering concrete. Everything went black. I don't know how long I was unconscious. It could have been seconds or minutes. When I opened my eyes, I thought I was in hell. There was fire everywhere. The smell of burning fuel and plastic filled my lungs, choking me. The side of the plane where I was sitting had been ripped open. Through the gaping hole, I could see the wreckage of a building. We hadn't crashed in a field. We had crashed into a college. My mind couldn't process it. All around me were bodies, still, silent. I saw the air hostess I had seen just moments before. I saw the people who had been sitting near me. They were gone. My first thought was of my brother. "Nayankumar," I screamed, but my voice was lost in the roar of the flames. I couldn't see him. His seat, right next to mine, was twisted metal, crushed by the impact. A wave of pure terror and a grief so profound it felt like a physical blow washed over me. But the instinct to survive is a powerful thing. It's primal. The fire was getting closer. The heat was unbearable. I knew if I stayed there, I would burn to death. My seatbelt was still fastened. My hands fumbled with the buckle, my fingers clumsy and slick with something I didn't want to identify. With a click it released. I was free, but I was trapped by debris. The emergency exit door near my row had been blown off in the crash, creating a ragged opening to the outside. It was my only chance. I pushed with my leg, shoving twisted pieces of metal and seat cushions out of the way. I crawled through the opening, the sharp edges of the fuselage tearing at my clothes and skin. I didn't feel the pain. Adrenaline was coursing through me. All I could think was, "Get out! Get away from the fire! Run!" I tumbled out of the wreckage and onto the ground, landing in a pile of rubble and broken glass. I stood up, my legs shaking uncontrollably. I was surrounded by a scene of utter devastation. The plane was a burning skeleton, embedded into the side of the building. The air was thick with smoke and the sirens of approaching emergency vehicles. I was alive. I looked back at the inferno, expecting to see others crawling out behind me. No one came. I was alone. I just stood there for a second in complete shock, and then I ran. I ran as fast as I could, away from the death I had somehow cheated. In the hospital, they told me I was the only one, the sole survivor. 241 passengers and crew on board, plus 5 people on the ground. All gone. The words didn't make sense. How could that be? I saw them all. I was with them. Why me? The question echoes in the silence of my hospital room, a constant, tormenting drumbeat in my head. They call my survival a miracle, a 1 in a million chance. But it doesn't feel like a miracle. It feels like a burden. It feels like a mistake. Every time I close my eyes, I'm back on that plane. I hear the screams. I see the fire. And I see my brother's empty seat beside me. The grief for Nayankumar is a physical pain in my chest. It's a hollowness that I know will never be filled. We boarded that plane together, full of life and plans for the future. I walked away and he didn't. How do you explain that? How do you accept it? I have to make the phone calls to tell our family that I am alive, but he is not. Every conversation is a new kind of torture, their relief for me immediately crushed by the weight of their loss. I survived, but I have to live with the memory of watching 246 people die. There is no manual for this. Doctors, officials, even the Prime Minister have come to my bedside. They ask me questions, trying to piece together the final moments of Flight 171. I tell them what I remember, the feeling of being stuck, the flickering lights, the loud bang. I hope my words can provide answers, can prevent this from ever happening again. But it doesn't bring anyone back. It doesn't bring my brother back. It feels like a small, insignificant gesture in the face of such a colossal tragedy. My physical injuries will heal, the cuts, the bruises, the damage to my chest. But I am not sure the other wounds ever will. Now there is only the aftermath. The quiet moments between interviews and medical checks. The gratitude for being alive is tangled with an overwhelming sense of guilt. Why was I given this chance? What am I supposed to do with it? I have no answers. I'm just a man who unbuckled his seatbelt and crawled out of hell. I am the man who lived, and I don't know why. For now, I just carry the weight of this miracle one breath at a time, and I mourn for the brother I left behind in the sky.